Call the meeting to order of the Board of Selectmen Sewer Commissioners on April 24th at 5:30 p.m. Can I have a roll call?
Mr. Chair,
Clerk?
4 selectmen are present: Mrs. Begley, Mrs. Winslow, Mr. Holmes, Mr. Slavin, as well as the interim town administrator, Mr. Foster, and the financial analyst, Mr. Sullivan, and Attorney Bowman.
Do we have a motion to go into executive under number 3?
Motion so made.
Second. Roll call. Mrs. Begley? Yes. Mrs. Winslow, yes. Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Slavin?
Yes.
Oh, phone's off, everybody. No, that's the Marion Road one.
Okay, thank you for your indulgence. The board was in executive session. We're now in open session.
We'll call him.
And tonight, on the agenda tonight, we're going to be discussing the senior workout program. Mrs. Green, if you'd come up, and Elsa Miller, if you'd come up. Turn the mics on, please.
There's 2 agendas.
One of the things that, oh, lights, oh my God, it's awful bright in here now. Thank you, Peter.
Should we clear the earlier part of the agenda?
Say it again.
There's nothing on the earlier agenda. Should we just clear it off? There's no consent agenda. There's no... Just let everybody know there's nothing else.
If we could begin the discussion, the hope is that all the information on the program was sent out to the board members. I've asked Susan to come in and Elsa to come in to give us both their perspectives so that we can move forward and get the program voted up or down so that we can get moving for the summer. So which one would like to go first?
Thank you.
Thank you.
We need to get the program going for this year, and we're really late. We've had a lot of people asking
You have to
about
talk
it.
right into that, Mike, please.
We have to get the program up and moving because we're late, and we have a lot of people coming in that are relying on it, so we really kind of have to do it. I think that with the 65 people, we should be able to do it with 25 at the pier, 25 at the beach. John Walsick is lucky that he has people that volunteer for nothing over there. They're not even on the program, so he seems to be pretty much all set. And 10 slots should be enough for the offices, maybe 15 if you want to allow it to go up to 70. So the last memo that I said, if we have 70 people and they all work their 100 hours, it comes to $52,500 from the overlay account. We have to up it this year to the $8 an hour because of the minimum wage. It was $7.50. So that reduces their hours. Instead of 100 hours, it brings them down to 93.75 hours of work.
Now, if you could talk to us through the application process.
They come into the Council on Aging with the Selectman's office. They can get applications there too. They complete the application. It goes to make sure that they don't owe any taxes or anything. There's a query check that goes on them. There's also something that they sign that says that they are the property owners, but Ms. Miller said that in some cases that's turned out that they aren't. So I think that's probably rare that they do that. I think she said there were 2 maybe out of the last year that they weren't. They sign a participation agreement that they agree to work the time and stuff and get the credit for it. And that's kind of it. I think that Mr. Andrews had wanted to change it this time so that all of the applicants were reviewed and then placed wherever they went best rather than not necessarily coming back to the same positions that they had before. One of the problems we have with some of the departments is they want the same people back because they've trained them. And that doesn't leave it open to anybody else having a chance to. But a couple of them have told me if they can't have their people back, they don't want anybody because they don't have the time to train somebody new all the time to do the work. So I think a lottery system would probably be fairer if you had 15 people or so that were capable of working in the various offices and doing things, and just draw their names and assign them someplace.
Questions from the board on the application process?
Normally, you just have a set list and
Slavin, if you could.
Normally, you just go ahead and have a set list that people will apply back each year and they have the same position.
If they were requested, municipal maintenance and the town clerk's office, and I believe the Board of Health, and planning, actually, they have the same people back every year. But it isn't that an awful lot of other people apply for those positions anyway. But what's happening in some of them is that more and more people want to get out of the sun, and they want to come inside and do work. They want to do office work or help out. And so, sometimes it becomes a confidentiality problem, depending on what they're doing. Where they would be located, and even a space problem. You don't necessarily have the space to have somebody in the office to do something. But it's tough to be out in the hot sun when you're at the beach and you're there for 2 or 3 or 4 hours, and sometimes longer. If somebody doesn't come up for their shift, you have to stay a little longer. And they find out that somebody else is working inside, they want to work inside too.
Do you also rate them by their financial needs?
We haven't in the past. We haven't done that. I believe when the program started, Mr. Potter was the chairman, and he was asked at the time if he wanted to do anything regarding income, and he said no, he didn't want to limit it, so we have no limits on it.
So there is no baseline?
No.
Thank you.
Because that was where it was going next. And Mrs. Winslow has a question.
Well, my question is right along those lines. I think this is a good program, and I know in tough financial times it's hard, but I think it's necessary in this community, and I want to keep it going. However, I do believe in income guidelines, and I do think we should be helping the neediest first before others. I also, while I understand and respect that department heads and offices invest time in people, we want to make this program available to as many people as we possibly can. One of the complaints that I get all the time is, I never get picked, I never get picked, I never get picked. And it is hard because we can only have so many. We can't have enough spots to fill all the need. So I'm not sure, Mrs. Green, if this is a matter of policy or if the ability to incorporate some of these guidelines is in your purview or the town administrator's purview, but I would like to see this given priority to those who are most in need, and then administered as fairly and equitably as we possibly can. Obviously, no matter what we do, people are not going to be happy completely because we can't make everybody happy with something like this. But I think at least if we try and make it for those who need it and try to divide the work up fairly, and maybe municipal maintenance has some of those big umbrellas or something we can put down at the beach to try and, a senior citizen in the sun, I understand that. It's hard.
Mrs. Miller, talk to us about the money, please.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, I'm sorry. What? Time out. You had a question on the qualifications.
Yes, thanks.
All right, go ahead.
I was.
That's why I went to. Go ahead.
I appreciate that you included all the surrounding communities. That's been helpful. What is the criteria? How is a senior citizen defined?
All they have to do is be age 60, according to our...
That's not too old to be standing in the sun. I can attest to that.
Right. There's an awful lot of them that aren't in the 60. There's a
60.
lot of them that are much older than that.
But
Let's not go there.
yeah, don't go there. But for
Are you volunteering?
no, I'm not 60 yet.
Oh.
Close, but not quite. I see that there. The surrounding communities, some have criteria, some pretty much have none. It's first come, first serve until they reach the number of people. But when it says departments choose help from the qualified applicants, I understand departments that obviously need the help, and they're going to need even more help, I foresee, in the next year or so, given what our budgetary constraints are. And the fact that they want someone that can hit the ground running, that they did spend the time in training. So I understand that. And I also understand that some people would rather, have a choice. So I think that Barnstable had one, I think 2 years is too short a time, but maybe 3. Cannot work more than 3 years in a row in the same job. Maybe we would have 2. It's almost like a term limit, so that other people would have an opportunity, but I'd like to hear what the departments would, how they would feel about that. And then, almost like us having vacancies in various committees, maybe we can post that that's what's available. So these are the vacancies that we have in wherever the people are needed, so that's where you can go. The people coming in can't pick and choose necessarily. If someone's going to choose, I wouldn't mind it being the departments, since they've certainly had to train people, depending on what they need to have done. But it's unfortunate. I mean, people can certainly apply. If there's a vacancy, one vacancy, and multiple people apply, then there's going to certainly have to be a choice. But I think having someone in the same job, there's a lot of advantages to saying they're in the same job for 10 years, but there's the disadvantages, other people don't have an opportunity, and that's kind of the challenge that we have even in the committees when people apply. So if someone's there and wants to continue and there isn't a term limit, do we just have them continue or give someone else an opportunity? So we have the same challenge as a board with all of the boards, committees, and commissions here in town. And having a maximum number is a must. It's an absolute must. And there's certainly, so do people come sign a confidentiality agreement?
No,
I think they should. Do they have to take ethics training?
no.
Because they're in some sensitive areas, are they not? Some people working in the senior work-off program?
I would think if you're working in the clerk's office, it's probably.
Well, I'm
certainly-
thinking ethics training and signing a confidentiality agreement is an
Absolutely,
absolute must.
Why would they not? Or they just haven't done it? in the
To my
past?
knowledge, I've never seen one, so I don't think it's ever been required that they do that, but it's certainly not a bad idea. No.
So we do a query on everyone?
Yes.
Yeah. Can I just ask a question? I don't want to interrupt you, but what,
Let's just make sure Mrs. Bagley's finished, because we want to try to land the plane.
did you land the plane?
I think so.
Okay.
Thank you.
What is this board's role in this program?
You set the number of people and the pay scale, I guess. You started the program, and you just have to reaffirm it, I guess, annually as to the number of people and
But
the
can
amount that they're going to
we,
get paid.
can we tell you that we want the ethics training, that we want
Sure.
the confidentiality agreement, that we,
Let's make a motion to add number 8, 9, and 10 on the column.
8, 9, and 10, Mr. Chair?
Well, it goes up to 7 now. Policy, right here.
Where's the policy?
The senior, Town of Wareham Senior Citizen Tax Work-Off, right now, it's issued by the Board of Selectmen as follows. There's policy 1 through 7. So if you want to require an ethics, just make a motion to.
Can I borrow a copy of your policy? Mine must be missing from here.
Oh, maybe this is a stack of copies. Let's
Oh, it is.
see how many there are. There you go.
That's helpful.
It must have been in your email. Oh, no.
Maybe.
Well, I think that's it.
Okay.
That was
So,
it. There was only 2 there, so.
all right. So the first thing about the policy is it's a maximum of $750 per year. So we're not changing the maximum. We're just changing the wage and the number of hours. Okay.
Yes.
The first qualification is a full-time year-round resident homeowner and taxpayer who's at least 60 years old, may receive on a home that he or she owns and occupies. Okay. The program is coordinated. The program shall include the following information: and Cory check, liability waiver. Okay. So I'm going to make a couple motions. The first,
Mr. Bowen?
my plane's not landed.
Start cranking the wheels down. I'll be quick. Was it ownership and or occupation, or was it ownership and occupation?
Owns
is
and occupies.
full-time, year-round resident, homeowner, and taxpayer.
There's a great IGR, information guidelines release by DOR to
They have it.
yeah, it's real good.
Okay, that's okay. So, Mr. Chair, I'm going to do this in a couple motions. The first motion I'm going to make is for the board to approve the state's minimum wage of $8 an hour to a maximum of $750 tax credits. Workers will be able to work the full 100 hour, will only work 93.75 hours for 65 positions for the year 2012.
Have a motion made. I have a second. On the question, Mr. Slavin. Well, that's where I was going after Mrs. Begley's question was to the money.
It's a budget question, and that's why it's part of what the selectmen are, in putting this out, this is the selectmen's jurisdiction. And it is a budget item. It ends up being taken out of my overlay. And why this got bounced around so much was because I kept being asked to set it, and you guys need to set, you people need to set how much you want put into the overlay to cover it. So by thousands, or by the number of people times 750, or you've broken it down, haven't you? There could be 2 people earning half of the 750. Haven't you had some earn more people? Susan, no? Okay. Well, then
All right,
she
Mr. Foster.
She uses the 750.
Please.
In the budget, the 2013 budget, the dollar amount for the entire overlay is $300,000.
Right.
Last year was $410,000. If you calculate this out, the 93.75 at $8 an hour, it comes out to $48,750. I believe last year they utilized $45,000, approximately $45,000. And I believe that was included in the estimate with the $300,000, $45,000.
353,000. It was included in the 410.
For this year, though.
This year, 45,000. Yes, I looked at the 3 years and said 45,000, and it should fit in that 300,000.
Right. And that includes, that $300,000 includes abatements, exemptions, and this program. So all 3 are included in that $300,000.
Is there enough to cover this?
If everyone put in the 93.75 hours at $8 an hour, it'd be 3,000 and change short. But it depends on how many abatements get filed and granted, how many exemptions get filed and granted, and how many people complete the whole program, the 93.75 hours.
Who is under you, Mr. Foster? Who is the day-to-day manager on these hours in the program?
I believe through each department, and Susan Green, who's been handling the program, but through each department, the department head should be overseeing these people that are working for them and the number of hours. And the question that I had for the attorney is how these people should be getting paid. I've heard 2 different things, 1 as a vendor and 2 as an employee, and what the liability is if they are receiving a W-2 versus a 1099.
Mr. Bowen?
Well,
All right, so while Rich is looking at that, Mrs. Winslow just made a motion. So who is going to manage that to make sure that we're already $3,000 over? So do you need to redo that motion and lower that number?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Was all of the money expended last year?
No, we didn't even, you approved 75 participants, and we only had 67, and they didn't all put their 100 hours in, so.
So you came below what was budgeted. So that would be the maximum budget.
So you set a number not to exceed in that motion.
Okay,
Does
so
that make sense?
let me
Not to exceed number.
let me withdraw my motion if Mr. Slavin will withdraw
I'll
his.
withdraw my second. Just one
Okay.
more question then.
Yes.
Is
While
this
Mr. Bowen is looking at
is
it.
this going to have any effect as far as our balanced budget? Moving this money, because we're taking revenue and going back and forth?
No, it's in the overlay account.
I understand, but if we go over and we end up with a deficit, don't we have a problem?
Sorry, Derek.
We'd probably have to, through either year-end transfers or through the October town meeting, transfer 3,000 into the overlay account.
Well, we're not going to go over.
Only if there's an overage?
Only if
Mr.
there's,
Sullivan?
yeah, only if there's an overage, that would be.
So if there's not an overage, because was the question, am I right? Was the question, Alan, was your question where the,
My question was two pieces. One, I want to make sure that we're not moving things around so we don't affect the budget, that we stay balanced. The other piece is if we end up with a deficit, that's always been a problem.
right, so, but the last, Mrs. Green, have we ever gone over, or have we ever gone to the maximum budget with the work-off program? Have we ever spent all of it? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, John. All these numbers people.
The tax rate recap.
It is
that
kind of
gets-
fun, isn't it?
The tax rate recap that gets filed every year on page 2, there is a line item to raise overlay deficits of prior years.
Uh-huh.
So if you did go over, if you spent or you utilized $301,000 and you had appropriated $300,000 for it, you'd have to raise it on your recap while you're setting your rate.
I have a question for you then. Maybe two people could answer that, maybe more. Say we did not go to the maximum amount that not to exceed the 48,750. However, due to the number of abatements, et cetera, we would have an overage. That's when it would be addressed. Is at the fall town meeting.
No, it's not. You actually don't put additional funds into that account.
So you would have to deny abatements.
No.
Then what happens?
You just have to live with, you're giving an estimate. This is an estimate, just like you
understand.
estimate your local receipts or anything
understand.
else. If you get to the point that and this would probably be at the end of next fiscal year, after the abatements come up and the exemptions, that would be in the
Right.
latter part of the next fiscal year. You wouldn't be
Okay.
in deficit until after we set our tax rate. That's
Okay.
why it's a prior year deficit.
I understand.
So
So this is the only mechanism that could produce a deficit?
any
This-
one of
This
those,
senior tax work-off?
it's a combination of the entire thing. You might be
Right.
under $10,000 with
Right.
your senior program
Right.
and be over $20,000 in what you might estimate for your
And then net
abatements.
the 10 that we need to.
Right, it's the
I
bottom line
understand.
that matters.
I understand, thank you.
So I apologize. So that's not true. I thought that was treated like a typical budget, but that wouldn't be. So it just goes to the recap.
By the
Yep.
time you would be in deficit for this, we would have already established our tax rate, because the abatements are a result of the actual tax bills that get sent. The actual tax amounts come out in the third quarter, and that's what you give your abatements and exemptions off of. So that's the majority of this program. The $300,000 you wouldn't even see that until the third quarter, and we've already established our tax rate.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Board, for a quick answer on W-2 versus 1099.
Yes, according to the Department of Revenue Informational Guideline Release 02-210, taxpayers performing services in return for property tax reductions are employees for purposes of municipal tort liability. Municipalities will therefore be liable for damages for injuries to third parties and for indemnification of volunteers to the same extent as they are in the case of injuries caused by regular municipal employees. The Department of Revenue does not address 1099 versus W-2. However, it does characterize the persons involved as volunteers who are working off an obligation that they owe to the town, so that they appear not to treat it as income.
So could they then be paid as a vendor? As opposed to an employee?
I don't think they're paid either, well, they're not paid at all.
So they don't
They're not
actually
receiving
get a check? They just get a credit?
They get a credit.
Oh, okay. Mr. Foster?
They get a credit, but they also get something, they have to claim, I believe it's federal.
On federal, they have to
They
claim
have
it
to
as
claim their
income.
federal taxes,
'cause
so
it
you
is
actually have to
income.
provide something over $600 on a 1099. So they'll be getting a 1099 if we go with a vendor. They would be getting a W-2 if we went and paid them as employees. And that problem's come up with other towns. There's discussions amongst the treasurer collectors.
I'll go the 1099 route rather than W-2.
Right, I believe you have more liability if you treat them as employees.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, back to my motion. So I am going to move that the Board of Selectmen for the Senior Work-Off Program approve an amount not to exceed $48,750 from the overlay account. This should accommodate 65 slots at $8 an hour with 93.75 hours worked.
I have a motion by Mrs. Winslow. Second by Mrs. Begley. Anything on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Abstained? 400.
I am going to make a motion that we add a number 8 to the existing policy, Town of Wareham Senior Citizen Tax Work-Off Program policy, that all participants shall partake in the ethics training, which I believe is provided online by the state.
I have a motion by Mrs. Winslow.
I'm going to do them separate.
Seconded
Second.
by Mrs. Begley. Anything on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 400.
I'm going to make a motion that we add a number 9 to our existing senior citizen tax work-off program policy to state that all participants shall sign confidentiality agreements when working with confidential material.
Have a motion made and seconded by
Mr. Slavin?
Mr. Slavin. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 400.
And finally, I'm going to make a motion that number 10 on Town of Wareham Senior Citizen Tax Work-Off Program policy, that in the event that applications exceed available slots, preference will be given to those with
Demonstrating financial need.
demonstrating the most financial need.
I have a motion made, seconded by Mr. Slavin. Anything on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstained? 400.
My plane has landed.
Thank you, Mrs. Winslow. In the essence of time, because we do need to
Any other
get
town
over
business?
to town meeting, I have one issue that's really burning. I got an email yesterday from the chief. I sent that to the board members yesterday.
I'm going to make a motion on that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. If you could do that now,
Yes.
please.
So we're under any other town business that could not be reasonably anticipated 48 hours prior to the posting of this meeting. This board received yesterday an email from Chief Richard Stanley asking us to conduct a show cause hearing. So I'm going to move that this board notify Mayflower Liquors to appear before it for a show cause hearing on, we're required 14 days, Attorney Bowen. So that would be, and they have to send it out. So let me just bring up my handy dandy calendar, because since I can't see that far. Well, we're on the 24th, so let's say they don't get it out to the 26th. That would be 1, 2, 3, yes. For May 22nd, for the alleged violation of selling alcohol to a person under the age of 21.
I have a motion made by Mrs. Winslow, second by Mr. Slavin on the question. Mr. Slavin.
We'll get all that information.
That's not for discussion right now, please.
Right.
I only brought this up because we got the email yesterday from the chief. He's anxious to get this.
Well,
on the
Mr.
docket.
Slavin's new. This is his first.
I understand.
Okay.
I don't want to discuss this.
Okay.
I didn't know what the question was. That's why I let it go. So we have a motion made in second. Anything else on the question? Mr. Bowen, is that clear?
I have it on my calendar.
Okay,
Oh,
very
good.
good.
And you can email that to Steve.
All in favor? All opposed?
Aye. No, I for yes.
Abstain 400. Anything
Sorry.
else?
Motion to adjourn?
Can I have a question, please? Kara, are you adding those to where mine ends at number 5? What happened to 6 and 7?
No,
Did I miss something?
I added 8, 9, and 10.
Right, but I have it at ending at 5. Are you on a
We'll
different
make sure that,
page?
we'll make sure that everybody here gets a copy of Mrs. Winslow's
Okay.
additions.
This is the most updated policy that I have, Mrs. Green. If
But
you
it ends at number 5.
no, number 6 is Town of Wareham employees will not be eligible for this program, and number 7 is depending on the interest and experience of participants.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Do you want
Okay.
the copy? Motion to adjourn?
And one other thing, quick thing on the sewer thing, this is very important. I just got an email.
I'm trying to get you
sorry.
out.
I just got an email about 5:30 from Mr. Campina. He asked me if he needed to come, and I said no. He has a list of 4 bullets that I will forward out to you guys tonight. And the question was, what is left to get us to a betterment fee? And he has the 5 bullets with a spreadsheet that I'll forward out to everybody tonight as soon as I get to the computer. And then we'll have him in next, probably Monday, to go through them in detail.
So he's going to be ready with that information.
There are 5 pieces that he needs.
We don't need every single penny.
No, I understand, but there's a couple of big items there that need to be addressed that he's bringing his plane in for a landing.
One-
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Oh.
One
Anything
question.
else before we go?
I think Mr. Slavin has something.
Mr. Slavin?
Is it appropriate or inappropriate to ask Council Bowen about something that happened last night during town meeting? Particular article that was passed.
On behalf of the board?
Not at this time. It would not be.
I mean, you can ask him yourself. Is it something that the board needs to hear out? Go ahead. Is it a legal question?
Yes, I think so. It's a legal question what we actually did at the town meeting.
We did?
Well, we passed we passed a particular article that was modified, amended, which reduced the amount of money we were appropriating to the Volk School.
Oh, no. I don't think we can go into that. It's not really on the agenda. But you can ask him. Yeah.
I also just want to say that I am going to be leaving after this meeting. I do have funeral services to attend, so I apologize to the general public that I will not be at town meeting tonight. But I do have to head out of state, and I want to thank my colleagues, especially Mrs. Begley, who will be picking up the slack for the numbers tonight. And I brought her candy.
All right, let's go.
Motion
on
to
town meeting.
adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn. Second? Second by Mr. Slavin. All in favor? All opposed? 400. Thank you all very much. Mrs. Green, Elsa, thank you very much.